You approach the hooded figure, recognizing the symbol on their hand as you say the passphrase, "A copper's worth of gold." Or, "After all your hard work, you have all finally become the leaders of the Adventurers Guild. Unfortunately, that just means you have paperwork to fill out." Factions are important to any fantasy world. It shows that people outside of the party have gotten organised, and opens the possibility for the party to find allies in the world. But tracking exactly how this faction thinks and feels about the party can be tricky. One method is to simply track it based on how they interact with a liaison. If the contact likes them, the organisation likes them. If they've been reliable for the contact, the faction as a whole considers them in a similar light. This is the simplest method, and one I'd actually recommend if factions are a sideshow to your campaign rather than the main focus. It does make it feel like the faction is one hive-mind blob thing, but that only really matters if you want to tackle the idea of messy factions with dissenting opinions. If you don't, anything beyond this is simply wasted effort. But if you do want to focus on factions, especially competing factions or civil wars or the like, then having their thoughts and interests be uniformly represented by one whole being is probably a bad idea. You can represent the idea to your party without a whole load of extra work by taking the first method and doing it again a few times within the same faction. You can add a surprising amount of depth by subdividing a faction, but only ever having the party interact with one representative of the competing ideologies within the faction. Renown, however, is a way to track the opinion of a given faction consistently. How it works is a party's renown with any given faction or sub-faction starts at 0, and as they gain renown, the party earns titles from within that faction, usually at the breaking points of 1 renown, 3 renown, 10 renown, 25 renown, and 50 renown. The versatility this allows is, rather than needing to think about how each individual character within a faction views each and every party member, you can assign them a general opinion of a given title. Characters who dislike authority may respect the party less the higher their rank, while those who seek to be favoured by authority will fall at the party's feet. This allows you to give a faction depth while limiting how much work you actually need to do. The DMG discusses Renown in a little more depth in Chapter 3. One thing it's a little vague on, though, is the idea of gaining perks with each rank. It is mentioned, but only briefly. It almost encourages you to skip over it or only have vague plans surrounding it. I think this is a mistake. Your players will first and foremost learn to appreciate a faction based off of what that faction can do for them. And if the answer is nothing, they probably won't like that faction for very long. I would argue that regardless of what method you use, understanding what perks a faction can offer your party is crucial to their implementation at the game table. Just real quick, if you're enjoying the video and haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really helps the channel out. Let's take, for example, the Harpers from the Forgotten Realms. When we decide to include them in our games, we should consider what a spy network of druids, bards, and rangers can do for our party. Perhaps whenever the party takes downtime, a member of the Harpers automatically gains 1 rumour from the network, although it may come with a request for action. Perhaps if they have 3 renown, that goes up to 3 rumours, and if they have 10 renown, they're put in contact with a shop that is sympathetic to the Harpers, giving them a 30% discount on mundane items and magic items of uncommon rarity or lower. Or take the City Watch of Waterdeep. Perhaps if the party have 25 renown with them, they're given a signal whistle that functions as a horn of valour while within the city, to simulate being able to call the guards to their side. The DMG gives us a table for understanding roughly how level and renown should align. At level 1 and 3, renown and level are equivalent. Level 5 and Renown 10 are equivalent, level 11 and Renown 25, and finally level 17 and Renown 50. Rather than using these as a benchmark for the rate of Renown gain, I'd instead say this table can be a great help for figuring out the power level of the perks being granted. For example, a Renown 25 perk should be an appropriate Tier 3 reward. We can use the Magic Item Awards tracker sheet to use magic items as a basis for the power level of a perk. For example, in Tier 1, a party is only meant to receive one rare item, so offering such an item as a Renown 1 or 3 perk might be inappropriate. But in Tier 2 we can receive up to 6, so it may be an appropriate Renown 10 perk. We can also use the creating a magic item section in combination with the above method to potentially use spells as a perk reward. For example, the magic item power by rarity table tells us that a rare item should grant spells of up to 5th level. So you might make a Renown 10 perk the ability to have the faction cast Legend Lore, Raise Dead, or Scrying once per day on the party's behalf. Another option for making factions feel useful without necessarily giving the party power they're not supposed to have is to have the building of new bastion facilities being done by an allied faction, have them work as hirelings, and have them be responsible for the party's ability to have special facilities. Alternatively, you can make your own special facilities and have those be offered as perks. You could also use the sidekicks from Tasha's Cauldron for Everything as a perk reward. Perhaps once a party member reaches Renown 3, they are given a level 1 sidekick to train and protect, both as a reward and a test. If you do so, I'd recommend having the sidekick quickly catch up to the party's level, perhaps tracking its experience gain even if you would normally just use Milestone. When Mythic Odysseys of Theros released, people often praised the piety system found within it, and wished it existed in base 5e. But this is funny to me, as it was more or less Renown for gods. You get a benefit and a title at 1 piety, 3 piety, 10 piety, 25 piety, and 50 piety. The benefits you gain at each stage of piety can also be a source of inspiration when determining Renown perks, and if you want to capture that feel in base D&D, you could of course make each god's church a faction with its own Renown. If you do that, I'd recommend limiting how many gods you do this for. See my video on making deities. No matter how you do it, if you take nothing else away from this video, I hope you feel the need to have Renown come with benefits. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, stick around. We're a newly formed TTRPG design duo, and I'm hoping to make a few more videos on DMing tips and tricks. My next video will be about unbeatable foes, why I think they're necessary for setting the tone of a campaign, and how to do them effectively within 5e's system.